I remember hearing about that Arbus would say you can't photograph everything. Yet the funny thing is, like, I almost photograph everything. And that's what's part of the magic of, like you say, streetwalker, a real range of places. I mean, these are
Exactly.
places I'm going to. This is where I am, or people I know. So I think the common thing is that they make me smile, they make me think.
Mary Meisler, I want to start this interview, first of all, by say a few words about yourself and the great photographer and person you are. So Mary Meisler is a Jewish American queer photographer whose work has inspired generations and has captured the most important and fun aspects of New York and nightclubs between the 70s and the 80s. And I want to already start off with, who is Mary Meisler according to Mary Meisler?
Meryl Meisler is this very lucky person to be here to talk to you. Uh, Meryl Meisler is a second generation American born in the Bronx, New York City, raised in the suburbs of Long Island, had the opportunity to go to college and switch and study art as long as I became a teacher, and has since I was a child had been around photography because my dad was always taking pictures and my grandfather, and I'm very lucky person.
Very lucky person. Mary
Yes,
Meisler, apart from being a very lucky person and a great person, she's also a huge photographer as well.
thank you.
When did photography enter your life?
Well, as I said, I always recall my dad, Jack Leinsler, who was a printer, taking pictures of important occasions. And anytime I saw my father's father, you always had a camera and a light meter in your face. So it's part of a natural thing of important occasions in family life were recorded. And I received my first camera at the age of 7. And I could get it out for you if you want. I forgot about that file.
Yes, I would love to
And I
see
would,
it.
do you want me to walk out and get it? It'll
If
take a
you have
minute.
it, yes, I
Yes, I
mean,
can.
yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
I can.
please.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Absolutely. Oh, there we
Ta-da!
are.
So for my 7th birthday, I received this adventure camera, 620 film camera, and I
Wow.
photographed my little brother, my family, kids on the block, school trips, Girl Scout trips, the same
Yeah.
things I still photograph today. And then I
Fair enough.
continued through my teens having like a Instamatic and other cameras. But in my senior year of college, well, I was an art education major. So when you say, well, who's Meryl Meisler is also someone who worked at New York City public school art teacher for 31 years. Meryl Meisler is also someone who has been in a 45-year relationship with my life partner, Patricia O'Brien. And these are things of who I am too. But
Yeah.
so I went in my senior year of college, which we're talking about, I think it was the fall of 72. I went to the Museum of Modern Art, and I don't think I was intentionally going to see the Arbus show, but I saw the Diane Arbus retrospective, and it moved me, inspired me. I, the photographs touched me, and so the following year, when I decided to go on to graduate school, I was going on to because I had a teaching degree in New York State. Unless you get a master's in 5 years, it's gone.
Yeah.
So I went. So I was going to go to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and someone told me they have a good photography department. So I thought I decided to take a photography class and learn how to use a real camera, like a 35mm film camera, and
Wow.
that started me. And I could go out and on my walls. One of my first friends from that class was going to the subways, and that's so. Though I wasn't a photography major, I was an art education major who switched into arts. My major professor was my drawing teacher. Uh, I continued photographing, and in seeing the the professor, his name is Cavalier Ketchum, was a documentary style photographer, and I was exposed to the work of Congress administration, the great documentary photographers. But I also saw the work of Henri Lartigue, a Parisian man who grew up in Paris in the early turn of the 20th century and photographed his family and friends fooling around, having fun. So these are photographs he took when he was 6, starting when he was 6 to like 11 years old. And then
Yes.
I thought they were hysterical. I loved them. So on my vacation back home, I started photographing my family and friends because they were very funny people, like Lartigue people. And so that was a great inspiration. And when I moved to New York City, it was the photographs of Versailles nightlife in Paris. And I would find myself going out to these amazing clubs. I said, this
Yeah.
is my Paris. This is my nightlife. So I photographed them. And then, there are other great influences. And when I was went on the subway, I was Walker. I see kids on the street. I'm inspired by Helen Levitt.
Yes.
It's just seeing, looking at great work. Some hit the most. So I think of my great. If I was to say Meryl Meisler, the mixture, it's like I guess vernacular family photographs of important occasions. Jacques Henri Lartigue,
Exactly.
Versailles, Arbus. Now, I also had the opportunity to study with Lizette Mardell when I moved here.
Yes, and
So,
we'll get into that.
yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Mary, before you mentioned that you saw before starting your actual journey, if we can say that, into
Yes.
photography, you saw a retrospective on Diane Arbus. Do you
Yes.
think that was the very first moment that you kind of felt or understand that photography is going to be my language? That's what I want to do. Or it came a little bit later with the studying, how did it came about?
I would say that looking at Arbus's exhibit and seeing the work and feeling it move me so personally, it wasn't like this is my language, but it's like contemporary. Like, well, maybe I'll check out Duolingo. Like, it was like I'll take a class that I might like to do it.
Yeah.
But I do recall, like on one of my first semesters home from graduate school, that with being with my mother and my aunt and going to International Festival of Photography and thinking, I'll be on these walls one day. Like I felt that like it was one of my
Inside of you.
languages. Yes.
Wow.
Not that I haven't been in the show there yet, but I will be. but
I'm sure you will.
but it was, thank you. But it's always been, as soon as I started, I was gung ho. It felt this feels right.
Yes. Okay, I would like to follow up on this topic a little bit. And I would like to ask you, how did your passion for street photography proper develop?
How did it start? Okay, street photography talker. I think the real hit happened when I moved into New York City in the fall of 1975, and I carried my camera with me. I don't think saying again. I was probably wasn't saying the word street photography or like documentary. When I saw something interesting, I took the picture. that, that's it. There. I saw
Absolutely.
something street photography and being someplace new, a vital city was visually. It was like a candy store. That's why that's where I delved into street photography. But I also think it's like unless I'm inside a private residence, I feel all my work is at it's street work, even if it's an interior or in a club. It it's basically unexpected things are happening. They're not planned. You know, I can't say nothing's ever posed because someone poses themselves, or if I choose to, yes, we can move
Yeah.
over. But it's not a set up. It's it's on the fly. It's jazz. It's on the fly.
I love that.
Yeah, no, we love the approach.
Yeah.
And speaking of
Thanks.
icons, because I really like what you had to say about the icons, you studied Lisette Model, who's an icon in photography. And what's the most valuable lesson you have learned from her?
Okay. So I was saying, so I when I moved to New York, I was just saying or when I was seeing you, it was to sign up to her class because she was, besides her own work amazing, but she was the mentor of someone who inspired me to study photography. I think a most important lesson is the unspoken lesson was that she never critiqued my lighting or the composition or something. She just spoke about the content. She kind of let me, gave me freedom to just keep going forth and finding that what I was doing, she only said positive things about it. And I think that was very liberating. Just keep doing it.
Very
Yeah.
constructive
So
as well.
she didn't
Yeah.
say those words, but she implied it. She implied it. And in turn, and since you did, and at the time she also spoke. The time I was showing mostly, I showed the portfolio of my Long Island. Long Island's a suburb of New York where I grew up. Family and friends, and the people in it were predominantly Jewish, and I guess she could tell. and 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 I remember her speaking about the fact that she said that there are so many. She didn't say these words. I don't want to quote her, but she implied that there are so many great Jewish photographers, and then and then and that especially she didn't say the word street, but street style. I'm translating my memory, so don't quote me. But this is what I took it as a young person, and that part of the reason she felt that we people of the book. It's a threat that people look like, and that also because of prejudice and anti-Semitism for centuries, Jews were not allowed to enter the guilds and the arts, just not allowed. And so when they did, they went. And at that time, not until recently, I did not know she was of Jewish heritage. I had no idea. But she just, so that was an insight to me as a young person, even identified, but also that she saw things in my photographs that I was looking for. So I think it was a very positive experience that set me to keep going in the direction I was going. But in the funny way, I didn't pursue commercial work because I know no matter how I photographs, people came out looking funny, and that I didn't really have a an interest in doing fancy lighting and equipment. I like this straight on approach. So I was a freelance illustrator drawing for many years for magazines and newspapers and books. And then I wanted a steady job, so I became an art teacher.
Yeah. No, we will touch up on teaching later because it's a very interesting
Sure.
subject and I love how it ties with your journey as a photographer. But one thing that hit me even in the last chat that we had was your insights on Jewish heritage and your Jewish background and how they shaped your vision, your subjects. And would you like to elaborate on that a bit?
Certainly. I have always, I mean, I'm married to a woman who's raised Catholic. I have a mixed family, but I've always had a very strong, since I'm conscious, I've always had a strong identity that I am a Jew, a practical identity, but there's a personal thing within me. And, and in retrospect, looking back, I think that I have a Jewish sense of humor. There are many, many, many. I mean, humor comes from all sorts of influences, backgrounds, or talents. However, I I think people talk, sociologists talk about DNA and things that happen that change people's DNA, and I'm inclined to go with one of the theories that many oppressed groups, and we're talking oppressed for thousands of years, part of their survival instinct is to develop other talents. And one of those talents that seems to be run pretty strong in people of Jewish heritage is a sense of humor. And but a lot of people have it too. But I'm identifying that mine is a very particular influence, and
I
that
guess
all
it's
my
a way of
and
coping with
I think
situations.
survival. I think it's so yeah, it's a way of
Survival.
coping and
Yeah.
survival. And that I when you say who's Meryl Meisler, she grew up in a very fortunate time of history for being a woman, for being a Jew, for being a queer person. Like in the golden age, very fortunate. But so all those identities are certainly, um, but minorities who are oppressed. So I think so. Yeah, when I saw Larti's work, the humor in his, and then we're talking about French, but I saw my family and friends as just being very, very funny people, just naturally, not comedians, just naturally in their life, and that I wanted to look for. I also, and this is in retrospect, looking over my work over decades, I've always looked to photograph people expressing joy.
Hmm.
And I think because there are so many struggles and living in my personal life, my family life, and people's lives, it's tragedy. I've always looked to capture the joy to hold on to it. Who knew?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I focus on.
No, we
Not
really.
that I could do it, but a few weeks ago, I was invited to do a 5-minute stand-up piece at the famous
Wow.
Stonewall Inn. I'm not a comedian. I'm
At
not a comedian.
Stonewall. Wow.
Yeah, no, it's about 5 minutes. So I use photography
Yeah.
to tell a story.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about this stand up bit that you did? Because I bet
Oh,
it's been a
sure.
blast.
It's someone named Nora Burns, who's a woman, a little younger than me, who organized. She's a performer. She has she published. Decades ago, you would have said that she was I can't think of any word for it, but for a heterosexual woman who's best friends with gay men.
Oh,
And I'm getting the word. Okay, when it comes to, and she's done up, and she's lost a friend named David in AIDS, and she does honors in a lot of ways. But she does performances, but she also organizes these events at the Stonewall Inn, I guess on a monthly basis, inviting people in. And she was having an evening about um, stories from nightlife stories. People share nightlife stories.
oh,
And she
lovely.
invited me. And she said, "You have 5 minutes." 5 minutes. I said, "Well, I don't get up and talk without having photographs. I learned that from lessons from being a teacher, going on for awards, and getting up and talking without a picture in front of me. It's like, ah." So I said, I will tell the story through pictures. Can I bring them a series of 5 pictures? And I spoke about those, and they were so I brought photographs. I said it was celebrities. The team was celebrity encounters. So I guess she sees some of my photographs of celebrities at clubs. So I've watched, like Andy Warhol, Grace Jones, but I also worked at the local Stonewall celebrities. I had photographs of
Wow.
Martha P. Johnson and Stormy Laverne, a butch bartender working. When I photographed Stormy and Fire Island and Martha P. Johnson and the Five Freed, I did not know who they were. I didn't even know who their pictures were until recently when I'm like tweaking them now. I said, wait, those cheat codes, and I looked up for people that's
Oh, dear.
and
Yes.
Martha P. Johnson. I was doing a story, pitching a story about 50th anniversary of Stonewall, and a photo editor I know said, that's Martha P. Johnson. I didn't know. When I took the photograph and when I chose to scan it and show it, I saw both of them beautiful people emanated power and joy, joyful power,
Yeah.
empowerment,
Great.
self empowerment.
Yes.
So those are
Yeah.
the stories I
Uh,
told.
yeah. So speaking of Stonewall, which is a milestone in queer
Sure.
history, but also in the history of civil rights altogether, what are the other experiences in your life, the other backgrounds that you have, since you mentioned having a multi-layered identity? Which are the experiences that shaped your vision aside from your background?
Well, yes, I'm a woman. I'm a New Yorker. I'm also, I'm gay. I'm queer. I'm a lesbian. I'm a, that, no, that, everything, just like everything you are, everything you read,
True.
all your life experiences and identities influence how you think and react. It's all part of you. And I have, I guess, here in the United States, there was a TV series for a while about Queer Eye for the gay straight guy. I have a very queer, quirky eye. Yeah, it's Jewish, it's New Yorker, but I have a queer eye, and I always see things funny in a different way. Not that all people are that way, but I know it's an influence, but it also, I think, as we know, my country. I don't say I'm a New Yorker. My country is a mess, and there's such a
It is.
hatred towards people who don't identify. Oh, yeah, I don't fit into any right category.
Who don't fit
Okay?
in the majority. We could say
Yes,
that.
I'm
Let's
not.
say that your
Yes,
country
I am
right
not.
now it's not doing that well.
Yes, diversity is like become a trust word, and
Yeah.
it's woo. um, but I celebrate it. Oh, you have to celebrate
Yeah.
it. Either that or you just farters. No, you have to be yourself.
Yeah.
But I think there's a
Exactly.
empathy, being the other. Like there's theories about, I'm saying, getting back to street photography, Jews. There's been people writing books about why so many Jewish street photographers. Well, anything is like maybe people who didn't have a home will wander as with somebody that in your teenage, you're an observer. And so maybe there's
Exactly.
a gift. Who knows? I didn't develop the gift
Yeah.
for seeing, but I have a good gift for looking and seeing. And so I think being not in the mainstream in groups that have been um, systematically um, hated, discriminated against.
Yeah.
I have a lot of empathy towards human beings being different.
Absolutely. And it shows through your photography. Okay, one last question for this section. And if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self who was just starting out in photography, what would you tell her?
I would tell my younger self to to be more confident, and
Amen.
that's that. that you're okay.
You're okay
Follow
the
your
way you
path.
are.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing advice.
I think everybody should hear this at least once in their lifetime. It's something that it gets overrated, but it's definitely true to the core. At least for me,
Absolutely.
it's true to the core.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, Mary, you've talked about um, your photographic style, the way you approach photography and life as well, which I think it could be kind of put together in that sense. And I wanted to dive a little bit more into your style and approach. Do you have specific subjects that you look for, or the more that you look for that you're attracted to when you're out shooting? Or what is that drives your photographic vision when you're out in the field?
Okay. If I like to photograph things that either I've never seen before or they seem very typical. Like in American art form of folklore, they would say Norman Rockwell, like a very typical scene of Americana, things that seem very typical. But I also like to photograph things that make me laugh, that make me smile. And
Yes.
and I will say it very, and anyone listening here, I am of anyone who's ever known or suffered from the depression, I'm that's me, and I'm treated very well. I'm taken care of it. Advice young people always find helpers, people to help you. But photography lifts my spirits, and then I think that's also part of it. I've always chose to capture the joy because
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Gonna
that's
go
one thing.
crazy.
I
Yeah.
I remember hearing about that Arbus would say you can't photograph everything. Yet the funny thing is, like, I almost photograph everything. And that's what's part of the magic of, I could say streetwalker, real range of places. I mean, these are
Exactly.
places I'm going to. This is where I am, or people I know, or people. So I think the common thing is that they make me smile, they make me think. I've never seen anything like it, or it just seems so typical. It's like crazy typical.
Crazy typical. And I wanted to ask you how important is the element of surprise in your photos? Because also joy, laugh are all reactions that are very spontaneous in that sense as well. How much is the element of surprise important for you, if it is, or do you prefer a little bit more control in the scene?
I would say I don't have kind of like the surprise, but I'm thinking a lot of it, everything when you talk about photography, a lot of it's in the editing,
Yeah.
not changing it, but choosing when you're looking at hundreds of things, finding something that sparks for you. And
Uh,
I think the element of surprise works well there, especially when you like, but they, okay, I'm looking at the picture on the wall behind you of my work. Thank you. The two women kissing on the floor, and then that was a shock that they get down and do it, and then the legs next to it, and then there's a sparkle in it, and discovering, and to me, the surprise looking for my work and discovering it. So there's an element, but also the cover of Streetwalker, which is at a beauty salon, and it's my mother in the chair and allowed me to photograph her getting her hair cheese, and yet the woman next to her blows this big bubble. But he say, "Would you blow a bubble and I'll capture them?" It's like she starts doing it, and so the surprise in the moment.
yeah.
It's also surprised that you such it in street photography style, which is like I say, both of these photographs I think are remnants of street style. It is just spontaneous. There's some reactions of human beings and their elements, the background, the objects.
I wanted to ask you, what do you look for in order to balance these two elements? Because photography, also your photography, it's a lot about instinct, but also deliberative actions. In a way, is how do would you say that you balance these two elements? Is
How
more
do I balance?
instinct or deliberate actions? Your photography is more about
Okay.
instinct or deliberative actions in that sense, or
Of course, it's a
both.
combination.
Yeah.
I I like, I would often say, like, saying the night, okay, series, I'm back to doing nightlife. So I'll talk about that. When I was younger, you see, it's fun. When I was younger, I was going out. And I wasn't even showing these pictures, and I was bringing my camera because I knew it was great. But I was also dancing. So I would say I wasn't going to photograph, I was photographing where I was going. Now I am specifically going to photograph when I go to do nightlife.
Okay.
I'm asking permission. I'm asking permission at the venue because they're a little more closed about it.
Huh.
Permission to go behind the scenes. So I'm choosing. It's more deliberate. But
Interesting.
that is also the prize whatever goes on
Yeah,
while you're
Because you
there.
never
Yeah.
know where you will find.
absolutely.
No.
Yes.
So
Wow.
I don't have a preconceived notion of
No.
what it's live. It's live theater. You know, it's happening right in front of you.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And I wanted to
But
follow up a little bit.
I'm going to
Sorry.
say something.
Yeah,
If you're doing something like a self portrait, you're setting things up, the setting, I'm instructing someone else to help me. So it's more preconceived. But then there's always spontaneity that has. You can't plan a moment exactly.
Like this. Agreed.
absolutely. I wanted to follow up on this a little bit because you have been photographing very chaotic environments, so to speak. So lots of people, lots of crowds, lots of places where there's lots of blink and you miss it moments. And was there ever a moment you had perfectly in your viewfinder but weren't able to capture? What did that moment teach you about photography?
That happens all the time. That happens all the time. You know, that you didn't take the picture, you saw it, you remember it forever. And, and, and I have to say it's part of your memory bank and it makes you more aware for the next time. Or because I'm choosing to go back working with film and I came back from Berlin and somebody gave me developer and it was bad. And I worked everything. I was like, okay, you have to let it go. You know, it's like, just have to let it go and you'll be more aware next time. I think
Absolutely.
anyone who is whether it's digital or film, any kind of photographic medium, don't come out. They don't look at you, lose something. It's like, you gotta let it go because there's so much. Or that I say street photography, some people run into things. I choose not to run. I said, let it come to me. And the thing that reinforced that, I used to go scuba diving and bring a camera, underwater camera. And if I swam fast to catch this picture of the fish, certain fish, I run out of air quicker. So don't run after let the fish come to you. I don't, uh, but that's not that. I'm just saying that's my forgiving myself. I think you always have to forgive yourself. It's like let it come to you, or that it just does. It does. It's like you don't know how oxygen comes in the air and goes down your body and it goes through your bloodstream, but it does.
Yeah.
And you'll see more things. And yes, I have many frozen moments where it's like remember them in my head.
And has this mentality, so to speak, changed your approach to photography over the decades?
I think this mentality has changed my approach. It makes me calmer, you know, and say, oh, like I say, I'm choosing to go back to film, right? So I can get a night like, oh my God, I'm using the flash and the flash cracks out. You know, like it's not working anymore. It's not syncing. Okay, let it go. You know, I'm disappointed, but that's all it is.
That's a lesson in patience, basically.
Yeah.
A lesson in patience and trust in the process. And in your opinion, what makes a photograph truly memorable? What are the key elements to you?
Okay, the key elements that makes photographs memorable is one, you can't get it out of your mind. You see it and see it and see it again. You just remember, okay, so there's basic things I think, I'm an art teacher. Composition matters. And the framing, the composition, the visual dynamism. I think
Yeah,
everything within the frame that you're choosing has to belong there. Add to it. It can be,
absolutely.
if it's a distraction, it adds to it also. But it's something that's, if you divide it inch by inch, this or centimeter by centimeter, every part of it is important, or adds to the overall. Um, and when we're talking about documentary or street photography work, then there's an element of what does it say about history, society, people, place,
Yeah,
people, time, and place. So,
absolutely.
yeah,
Okay, one last little bit about this. And how do you choose the subjects based on what you just told us?
I choose subjects based on the fact that I find them fascinating,
Cool.
or
That's
I
fair.
enjoy doing it. And I mean, when I'm thinking like, why am I shooting Nightlife again? I'm big. It's many years I was going out to my publisher was first of all, it was a drag burlesque house. I was like, why take these pictures? I've been here, done that. And I realized like, no, just the fact that you enjoy it is enough reason.
Absolutely. Fair,
Yeah,
fair.
it's like, you know, stop being so hard on yourself. Just for the
Mm.
fact that you find it interesting, it's enough reason.
And you can
It's
make it
all the
interesting.
editing. Yeah,
Yeah,
you find it compelling, but then also a balance. Like I don't,
absolutely.
I'm 73. I don't go out every night. What's why? Like,
Why
there are other
not?
things to do. I wonder if I could, but yes. And yeah, and also as artists, photographers, editing your work and putting down series and exhibits and books, it's interview. It takes a time, and then you have
It
to give the rest
does.
of your life. So
It
I
does.
think there's a healthy balance is
Yeah.
very important.
You, Mary, have this very big personality and you're very outspoken as well. I can feel your energy like kilometers away, legit kilometers away from here. So I wanted to ask you, have you ever had to overcome fear or shyness when shooting strangers? Have you ever, how is your relationship when you're out with your subject?
Yeah,
It has been hard.
it's very funny when you say that. I consider myself a shy person. No,
Okay.
and I do not have a big personality. I don't think I have a big personality.
You have a big
My
personality
mom
with
has
me.
a big personality. So like I'm attracted to people who have big personality, but I don't think I do. Um, so that's funny. We have perceptions. Right from the start, when I started photographing, my comfort is like 99% of the time I ask people's permission. That's me being a nice Jewish girl. You're just wanting that I feel comfortable
Yeah,
asking,
fair.
and that's or signaling,
Mm.
and many street photographers. That's like a don't know. I'm more like no, everything's okay with me. Whatever works for you, but that's more my comfort level. And
Okay.
so if someone says no, it's like okay. It's like
Okay, bye.
you just get yeah. No, I say thank you. I understand. And usually I'll say, if there's time to make a verbal conversation, I'll say why I want to photograph them. Your album's amazing, or your kid, blah, blah, blah. I was in Paris 2 weeks ago and I asked to photograph someone's little child playing in a playground.
Yeah.
And then that child went off somewhere else. They were wearing this great outfit. And there were some other children in it saying, and one of the dads like was very upset with me. And like,
Yeah.
why did you do that? And I apologized. I said, that really is not my style. It's funny because
Yeah.
that's really not my
The
style to
opposite.
do so,
Exactly. The true
especially
opposite.
with children. But
Yeah.
he was there near the other that, and he said, what are you going to do? And I said,
Yeah.
I'm a photographer. Maybe we'll in a museum someday, but it's just my kid. And I understand that.
Yeah, that's
So
totally fair. Especially,
I was embarrassed to be the loud, obnoxious, not polite American
American, that's
photographer.
I get it. I get
Ugh.
it.
Oh, I'm
Especially
really bad to be how they New Yorker.
gotta live in New York. And no, I'm just
Yeah,
joking.
yes, we're different. We're different.
Totally different thing. And I wanted to ask you, have you ever had a moment or an experience with a stranger that really sticked with you, or that changed your perspective on photography, or do you had a different experience that you can remember? Is there anything that apart from this also that you just mentioned in Paris, but is there another example?
Oh, I'm thinking of something. That's a good question. Not off the top of my head, but then I'm thinking about the photographs you didn't take. That I often don't photograph people who are down and out because there's so much of that. I just don't. It's doesn't want. But a few years, like maybe 2 years ago, I saw a woman laying on the streets in New York, but she actually looked great. She just like a being, and I just said, may I take your bacon? She said, no. I said, I said, it's fine. That's great. I understand. And I said, I want you to know you look fabulous. And I just walked on. And she called me back and said, you check my
Now you
picture.
can.
She didn't come out. But she was so comfortable
Yeah,
being who she was at the moment. And so that'd be something.
that
I
really
think
stuck with
everything,
you.
I think everything changes you when you look at it. When you look at another sentient being, a feeling being, with eye contact with a dog or a person, you see them, even if it's a split second, somehow your molecules and your personalities, everything about you, you exchange. It's a, I'm going to say the human experience, but it's probably every living being experience. So when you photograph people,
Yeah,
you're exchanging some kind of communication and a trust.
with the subject. Yeah.
Yes. Speaking
Yeah,
of
yeah,
communication and trust, which are two key elements in street
yeah.
photography and photography in general, um, being in clubs in the 70s and the 80s, you might have encountered some difficult situations. How did you manage that? So,
I mean, a different situation I can think of is like a club owner who offered me gave me a white powder and then said afterward it was forced, and I found out it was heroin. I was upset. That was like no. That I only remember very since I asked people
yeah.
whether they're aware, it's been so rare that anyone had a negative reaction. And one time I was in Fire Island at a disco in Fire Island, and I think I even might have climbed a hole in a wall a little bit, and somebody shoved me.
Oh, no.
I think that's the only time.
Oh,
It
yeah.
also made me, I think, more aware that this is a gay club in the 70s, and not everybody's out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they have to be respectful. So I don't have negative experiences that I can that have happened that made me want to stop doing something. But I think some things make you more sensitive. Like I try to be I try to be sensitive and
Mhm.
to be to honor
Overstep.
what's good
Yeah.
about that person. I think okay. I think being younger, I was self conscious because people say my pictures are funny, like I'm making fun of people. I'm not making fun of. I'm having fun with. I'm
With
not
them.
laughing at. I'm laughing with.
With.
Or I'd like to think that. Or that is my intention. How's that?
Absolutely. That's actually a very, very important distinction, especially today. So,
I want to talk, Mary, a little bit. I want to change topic a little bit. I want to talk about photography versus, in a way, documentary photography. And I wanted to ask you, how much do you think they overlap with each other, and where do you draw the line between the two? Because you do a photography that it's a bit of both, like the
Yeah.
spontaneous street photography, the unexpected moment, something that was random in a way, but also you documented an era that legit changed everything for so many people also around the world, like New York. And that time was a beacon of freedom, liberty, self-expression. What do you think?
I think, like in any practice, there are people who are more strict. Like there's a strict Catholic, and the ones who will say, "Well, we'll use birth control." But then there are people who are ultra orthodox versus
Mhm.
more liberal. I am more fluid about my idea of how strict photography, documentary are combined.
Could work
I
together. Yeah.
but that's I don't judge anyone else who considers otherwise. But I am. I think when if a picture is indoors with people posing and there's lights and and they're it's obviously they dress. That's not a street photoist. You know, they can be
Okay.
dressed up, but you're doing a portrait of
Yeah.
someone in a planned situation. That's not street photography stuff.
Mm.
To me.
Okay. Because I wanted to follow up, some argue that street photography is art and documentary photography is information. If we want to really take this to the maximum level, I not from the same perspectives I'm saying, but I wanted to know what do you think about this? Because it's a debate that has been going on between a lot of photographers, communities. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that there are other communities who say narrative, plan, that's art, and documentary and stream is just photography. You know, it's not that's not art. uh,
Fair. Fair.
there's always going to be five people putting a light bulb, five different ideas, and that many people say my work is not street because the person's looking at you. It has to be like what's the word when someone's
Mhm.
they don't know. They don't know.
Exactly.
Um, I, I I'm more open minded about things overlapping.
Yeah, labels do not really matter
To
because
me,
again,
to
street
me.
photography sometimes, like a lot of people think that must be spontaneous. So direct interactions with your own subjects, it could be a way to contaminate, if we want to say, the scene. But you kind of answer my next question. You're very fluid also in the way you approach art. So that's already something
I
that
think
really
so.
resonates with me as well. I don't know if you want to say something else.
You know, I was thinking when you say spontaneity, even if you're having a planned photograph, and you're doing a portrait of something, this spontaneity happens, and that's the magic
Yes,
also. Yeah,
exactly. Agree.
but not a street photo to
So
me.
it's street photography. Yes,
Yes, but
absolutely.
almost anything is documentary, even if you're setting up because it's like a costume with the hair, and it's a it's
It's
a time
true.
capsule.
It's true. Everything we do is political as well, is information, is documentary on the way we walk in the streets, what we choose to eat, what we choose not to eat. It's not just
You know,
politics in general. Everything we do
sure,
is political.
yeah,
So,
and
yeah,
you show what you choosing to show,
exactly.
question, write about it. It's complicated.
It
Yes,
is.
Yeah.
It
yeah,
is.
it's true.
And how do you balance your personal storytelling with the responsibility of documenting the politics of life, as we were saying before?
Okay, well, finding balance is very life challenge.
Yeah.
And a young person like it presented last weekend has been asked me about their advice. They said as a young queer person, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I said I'm very, I may look like a white, but I'm very middle class. I'm very safety conscious. I said, your health and well being come first. Taking from and I mean and that yes, and that's part of the reasons why I became a teacher because I wanted a steady income. I think having a healthy balance, getting your sleep, eating, um, uh, that your relationships come before your photographs. You're like, you have pay your bills. I mean, you do your duties is important. Uh, because I'm retired from having a full time job, I have the luxury of focusing on my work. No, and then I have sup- developed my support system called my pension and Social Security. That I have a balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it's very important for people who are struggling or feeling something out. It's knowing how to ask for help. Uh, that- I'm a firm believer in therapy. I've been doing it for
Yeah.
decades. I've done
Yeah.
it.
Same here.
Same,
Fi-
same.
finding community,
Yeah.
finding supportive community, finding
Absolutely.
focus, yeah, taking care of things so they don't go out of control is important to me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a fair approach. I would like to go back to nightlife for a bit because that's your your
Yeah.
your favorite subject, I guess. And I would say, what drew you to not just leave nightlife, clubs, discos, but to also document them in your photography?
I would say seeing the photographs of Versailles,
Mhm.
nightlife of Paris was a direct inspiration. I was
Absolutely.
like, thank you, Versailles. So
Yeah.
I love his I love his photographs. I love the
Yeah.
scene, all the range of places, the places that he went to that I'd never know about other way. That's definitely an inspiration. And it's also you can see his work with the flash and group situations. Versailles was the main
The
the
main
main
one.
Okay.
my main man. You know,
Absolutely. And just a little secret between us and our
yeah.
followers. How did you gain access to such iconic clubs like Studio 54, Paradise Garage?
Okay. I think well, um, I made friends with someone who's still friends with Judy Jupiter, who I met at coming in both with Mardi Gras. And we both when we came back to New York, we both liked to go to clubs, and so we went clubbing together. And she's more of the loud personality. It, well, Studio 54, Juniper called up and when they first opened, there were a couple of PR people and said we're photographers and got us on the list. We never published anything, and then the doorman liked us. And it didn't matter
That's a game
if the
changer.
doorman didn't like it that life. Then he went to another club. I think about some of my most interesting ones are other clubs.
Yeah.
So not old.
That's
Yeah.
it.
When get just
I
went
mean,
out and then didn't get in that night. He went someplace else. It wasn't.
being friends with the doorman, that's such a bit. That's a
Yes.
pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
high elite thing. That's,
That
I guess,
helps.
the
That
game
helps.
changing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a boss move.
And
That's definitely a boss move.
Exactly.
And would
I,
you like to?
I'd like to bring it to the present
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like okay, even clubs now, when if I go out, which is not, it's like say the house at Yes in Bushwick, they know my Bushwick work, but I know some of the performers,
Mhm.
and so if someone's performing that I know, I'll ask permission. But even then, because when I was clubbing in the '70s, everyone had cameras. There were a lot, that has always surprised me that people like my photographs that they stand out anyway, because there were so many photographers.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were paparazzi journalists.
Yeah.
Uh,
Sure.
and maybe people a little more fussy about photography now. So I need to get permission beforehand. And so I asked.
Yeah,
Um,
no, that's the thing you said about permission is a topic that is being recurring in all of
yeah.
our interviews so far. So I think we definitely nailed one of the main issues with straight and documentary photography right now.
Yeah.
And just for a story time, how was the first time you set foot in one of these legendary clubs? So how what did you feel? How did it go?
Well, the first time I stepped into one of those leather clubs in all particular street walk was on my own, February 14th, 1977, at the
Wow.
Copacabana, and it was and I was taking a class with a photographer, Bob Engelman, and he mentioned there was going to be this huge event, and I contacted them on my own. I found writing. I asked permission to go, and went, and I was low. It was a Coyote Hookers Raspberry Bowl. Coyote is cast off your old tired ethics, and was organized by a woman named Marco St. James. And it was basically like the equivalent of a sex workers union. Pick up your
That's
attention.
awesome.
And there are people, I love that. It's like, I'm like
Yeah.
24 years old, and there are people of all ages, of all genders, sexual identities, colors, backgrounds, sex workers, photographers,
I love
people
it.
with it was amazing. And
Yeah.
I took, and then that day, and I'd never been in a club with such great scenery and sound system
Hmm.
that hooked me. And it's like that. It's
Nice.
like when I came back, went to Coca after that night. I came
Hmm.
back and then started going out to discos more when I came back from Mardi Gras.
Amazing.
And
And
I took amazing pictures that night.
yeah, exactly. And speaking of amazing pictures, you kind of anticipated my next question. So basically, I wanted to ask, what's one memorable moment, if you had to choose just one, that you were able to capture in one of these clubs?
I'm going to do something just very typical because I'm thinking of the stand up. It's like that I think the picture on your wall is amazing. And those,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
also being just standing next to Andy Warhol and just say, "May I take your picture?" And see, he came off his side to me and
Wow.
smiled. I, you know, I can't think of any one particular one, but I had so into celebrities, and I
Yeah.
like the regular people too. I mean,
Hmm.
tell me more.
Yeah. And what's one element in this picture that is a, a symbol of that era?
Interesting. I think what the elements of the nightlife of then is that it's to me they seem very contemporary now and modern, and and that's why I think people in the nightlife now like them because it reminds yeah, like well, I know someone who is a burlesque dancer who says, "I have no shoes." Like those,
Amazing. That's
yeah.
cool. That's
And
cool.
the fashion is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
Ah,
fashion decor, people dancing, how could go wrong?
yeah. I feel the
Yeah,
energy of it was
yeah,
completely
energy.
different from the energy now. In fact, I wanted to ask you, do you think there
I
was,
don't agree. I don't agree. I think
you don't agree with that?
there's energy and magic now.
Yeah, you think so? I love that. In
There
fact, I wanted
is.
to
Yeah,
ask you,
yes.
do you think the clubbing scene has changed from before until now? And if so, because you've been going also out there together. I mean, not together, me and you, but when we worked together also for the book, we did some shooting and video shooting, and you went back to clubbing. And I wanted to ask you, do you think there has been a change in the clubbing scene, and how have you adapted your photography to it?
Well, for many decades, I did what did not was not going back. Is there a change? I am not an expert on this. I am not going out to all of the clubs that
Okay.
are going on. Someone sent me I could. I tend to go to more LGBTQ plus welcoming clubs
Yeah.
that I know. So I don't have a diverse enough experience
Experience.
to speak of the clubbing scene there.
Okay.
Okay.
And in
But
your
I will say one thing. I will
exactly.
say one
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
something that you will see. I've always known trans women. I personally have not known so many trans men before. How's that? That
Okay.
there's more a bigger drag kings scene, and you know, I'm not a
Yeah.
I'm not a I'm not an expert.
No, that's an interesting point of view, though. Absolutely. I mean, you leave it first person, so it's definitely interesting. And do you think your photography, have you adapted your photography in different ways because of this, or it has been still the same so far? Like not for trans women or something, not for the different clubbing you used to do before and the club you do now. Like your approach is the same when you photograph your subjects, or do you think it
I
has
think
changed?
I am choosing to look for the same. That
Okay.
I'm going back, I'm making a conscious choice to go back to the same kind of camera I use and slow it down with a flash and a camera. And and I don't want to replicate what I photographed before, but look for nuances that are a little different.
Okay.
I think that's with photography in general, no matter what your
Yeah,
subject is, the
exactly.
street, you don't just want to take the same exact picture, but you want your other experiences influence what you do.
Yes.
So,
Interesting.
so
Interesting.
I think informing it, and I, I think one thing different about clubs, I think clubs used to be brighter. It's so hard to focus in the dark.
Brighter.
I think they're a lot
Sure.
darker now. Oh, my eyes have changed. But I think I don't remember being younger and wishing I had a flashlight. So I think clubs are darker, and
That's
that people
funny.
are more self and that more more protective about access because nowadays the internet
Yeah.
and things like, and you could have your work
True.
published and get fired from your job, and that a picture be published and be fired the next day from your job because of it at the wrong press gets was going so
True.
um
True. I
yeah.
wanted to ask you a little bit about Bushwick as well. And
I,
the first time you started photographing Bushwick as well. What draw you to Bushwick exactly?
what drew me to Bushwick was it was my I started teaching part time, meaning 4 days a week, started in the fall of '79.
Mhm.
And I was on a wait list to have a full time job with healthcare and unemployment. I was speaking to people in Europe. You are so lucky. You have universal health care. We don't here.
That's
No,
a all other
okay, but
talk right there.
okay, you got it. But it's really bad here. And so I
Yeah,
was,
so bad.
so I really wanted um some kind of I don't know what I was tired of living waiting for paycheck to paycheck coming out of a freelance job. So I was on a waiting list to get a full time job with benefits, like when you're sick days and things like that, healthcare. And the job that a letter came that I had an interview at this intermediate school 291 on Palmetto Street. It was Bushwick. So I get out there, and it looks like a war zone. The war that happened 2 weeks ago is just dead, and basically, if I was the principal was going to offer me a job, I could either accept it, but
Yeah.
if I turned it down, I would lose the chance to have this a job with benefits and be off the list. So I took the job,
Yes.
and
Wow.
it looked like a war zone
It
and
does.
outside of the street and teaching was very hard. But I was starting in December, and by February, Patty, my wife Patricia's my girlfriend there, then living together. I mean, like I found what I was seeing so interesting walking back and forth to work. She bought me one of her early point and shoot cameras, and I
No.
loaded up with slide film, and I would carry it with me on my getting out of the subway, walking to school, on the way home from school, walking home, or if I saw something interesting out the window, I'd sign out during the lunch, take the pictures, and I did that. I taught pushing 14 years.
Wow.
I didn't know I was making one of the most important yeah, one of
Exactly.
the most important
Yes.
documents of pushing in the 80s and early 90s.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how did you connect with the communities you photograph? Was it something that came spontaneous? Was it something that I'm not saying it was thought in a way, but How did you, apart from becoming a teacher and getting the job, but also going out there, right?
Well, it was really because I was cheap. I would walk up the same blocks, going to and backward. I would see people I at any time recognize them, knew each other, or they went to the school, or they're little kids. I mean, there are people I actually knew them from teaching on the
Okay.
street, or I recognized them, from walking up and down the path. So
Interesting.
like thing, I wasn't on assignment. I
Yeah.
wasn't there for a day a week. I was there for 14 years. And so, um, and then that's why a lot of the pictures was what brought my Bushwick work to light was not just that it was like a burnt down neighborhood that now become an artsy neighborhood. It's like the people look pretty energetic and upbeat. Oh, that's Meryl not wanting to quit her job. I didn't take these pictures of things I found depressing because guess what? I was worked for a living.
Yeah.
I did not want to quit. I wanted reason to get up in the morning, so I photographed things that people I found uplifting or the
Interesting.
interesting lights.
And how do you see
Wow.
Bushwick now compared to what Bushwick was at the time? Do you see changes? What kind of changes?
Well, as soon as I went, when I first started looking at these pictures because of back in 2007, like the first time for planning to do a show with another teacher, a guy out of the subway with him, and been looking at me, and he goes, I'm thinking, where all these white people come from? It was gentrification.
Yeah.
I, like, to me, seeing burnt out lots and buildings going, that's fine. That's right. I mean, that's fine. But to me,
Yeah.
I don't need to see syringes on the ground.
Yeah.
Of course, any neighborhood that's gentrified, and that's what it is. I mean, what neighborhoods have always changed. The United States was in Germany, it was Jewish, it was
Yeah.
every day was people. It is the city
Changing.
of immigrants changing. Um,
Yeah.
the biggest surprise, to me, honestly, is that when I was working there, felt very homophobic, and the fact that it became not just a big art scene, but a huge drag and burlesque thing is really surprising. That surprised
Interesting.
me.
Oh,
That surprised me. And I mean, of course, finding affordable housing is difficult in New York City. It's very difficult, and it's made it more difficult when a neighborhood gets popular. And I did not go clubbing in Brooklyn. I was like, they have a club scene in Brooklyn there.
yeah.
Over some of the big club scenes.
Yeah, as we were saying before, I would like now to touch on a bit on social media and internet. So, how have social media influenced your way of seeing photography, or even your approach, if they ever did?
Well, I would say that I'm actually a latecomer to like Instagram. It was actually Bushwick helped me do it. Someone who Katarina or Bushwick Daily was like, you have to get on it. People love it. I was like, why do I have to do this?
Okay.
Well, you see a lot more. You get
Yeah.
feedback. I am I'm I'm one of those people who's angry at Meta because of their change in
course.
policy of
Yeah.
so I signed off on Facebook, but
Yeah.
on Instagram I get things that happen. I met you through Instagram.
It's true.
I met
Eyeshot.
that wonderful photographer whose name is escaping me, the Japanese photographer.
Shin.
Shinoguchi.
Shin. I met Shin. I would not be speaking to you. I wouldn't have this book if it wasn't for social media. Shin
Noguchi.
friended me on social media, and I started following his work, and she's following mine. And then once he wrote me privately that he couldn't find my first book to tell two cities just for Bushwick, and I was selling for $350, like crazy. And I thought I'm selling it, the used thing, for like $15. And I wrote about why are you not here? So he took me, and he said, and then and because of our relations, friendship that built up, and I liked his work, and likewise, he introduced my work to Eyeshot.
Yeah.
I have,
Yeah.
so I was photographer from Belgium, was in New York, and I'm a street
Connected.
photographer met me, and found myself in Belgium 2 weeks ago. We got together. So
Nice.
you meet people.
Yeah.
Honestly, I sold work
Yeah.
through social media.
Hmm.
I've been sending my gallery. I've done articles, press, invited to shows. So as an arts community forum, I think it's a very, it's been good.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I find that people are like the other artists like clapping to each other and like not are you looking at me like yay yay, so
They're supportive. Yeah.
Yeah.
and
There's
and if it's a negative something that I find negative or offensive to me, I unfollow them.
Yeah.
No,
As
Yeah.
simple as that.
Yeah. I wish that would work in real life as well.
yes.
Yeah.
Just unfollow friends.
But
Absolutely.
photographers out there,
Mhm.
so you copyright your work. My work has been lifted and used for commercial purposes. I
Mm.
have my work is copyrighted. I
Hmm.
contact the, if you use this, someone uses your work for
Exactly.
commercial purposes, they pay
Yeah.
for it. And so
Cool.
it also have to be a lot more vigilant on your art, on your life's work,
Yeah.
unless you're just giving it away to someone
Yeah.
who's doing dance in their real estate or a
Oh no.
restaurant. Yeah.
No.
No,
So
absolutely. And speaking of how social media
I'm
affect,
going to raise my
yeah,
hand.
yeah,
I think one of the most magical things of people who have found themselves or their friends or their family through social media. And I've had backstories about that picture. There's 4 kids on a block in Bushwick. That's me and my sister and that little boy in the leather jacket. We live together now. So that's great. So
Oh,
I've gotten in touch
no.
with people, and
Wow.
it's always been positive so
Yeah.
far.
I love this vibe.
That's
Yeah.
something not like really cool for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I wanted to ask is that, Instagram and TikTok have also popularized street photography. Is there a risk that this popularization, this very, very wide sharing of materials, of content, could it dilute the meaning of street photography or make it less meaningful somehow?
Uh, Number one, I'm actually not on TikTok. I don't even want to go there. I don't need any other social drains on my head.
Oh, no.
But quality is more important than quantity, and media education certainly is important so that young people learn how to understand the message in the videos.
Has modern street photography adapted to social media needs in terms of spectacularization or style or trends, according to you?
Well, street photography is really hot on social media. People really
It
like it.
is. Yeah.
I think it's getting the respect that is due more than it is in the gallery and museum scenes.
Hmm.
So
And
when
why do you think
somebody,
it's that? Maybe it's easier. Why do you think that's the reason? That's the
it's a
situation.
feeling,
It's
you
a
can be seen
feeling.
anywhere. You can be
True.
seen through the eyes of somebody in a far off country, town, another part of the world. It's a universal language.
It's true.
I think
Absolutely.
it's exciting and it's
Mm.
au- authe- it's authentic.
It is authentic.
It
Sure.
absolutely is.
It's authentic. It gives
Mm.
you and it gives you such an insight into this
Yeah.
complex world.
It is a complex word. And one of the negatives of social media is that it makes artists in general and photographers, of course, more exposed to negative feedback, lack of feedback that sometimes is disheartening. And how do you manage the balance between success in terms of interaction, views, and metrics, so to speak, and personal satisfaction with your work?
Well, of course, it's not. It's exciting when all of a sudden 1,000 people like your picture,
Of
but
course.
it's and I know people get despondent and nobody likes it. So don't take it so seriously, and
Yeah.
and and I go and know how to take a break if you need it.
Absolutely.
It's a balance. It's the balance of life, and
Absolutely.
and 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 I think it's much harder for young people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who have grown up with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to
Yeah.
divert a little
Mhm.
bit the conversation, and I want to talk for just a couple of questions about privacy and ethics. We kind of said that a little bit before, but street photography is often criticized for its lack of, for its lack of, uh, not for its lack, but for its privacy issues. In that sense, what do you think about that?
I think if somebody's outside in the public, you're in the public, and if you're wear a mask. No,
I mean, it's
the,
fair, like
no,
in America.
my wife doesn't want me photographs of our private life or photographs. So there are people very private.
Yeah,
But if it's in a if it's in an outdoor, not even a club, an outdoor public setting, as happening, you take a picture. I guess it's reality. And if you don't want to be seen like that in public, don't act like that in public.
that's fair. And if you think about it, America has much less stricter rules than we do in Europe for privacy. So I guess it portrays a country for sure. Sure. In Europe, it's much harder to just take a picture, even if it's an outdoor place like that,
Oh,
because
oh,
of
this is it. I
laws,
know. Okay.
ethics, and that kind of things. So that's interesting what you say. And I want to connect to this a little bit instead to documentary photography. It's not really about privacy issue, but what do you think of those people that instead say that documentary photography sometimes it could become an exploitation of the pain portrayed?
Anybody can take anything and do a negative spin on it. Um, it's such a case by case
Yeah,
situation,
Yeah.
true.
and
There's not a rule, you would say, a
yeah,
norm. It's tough.
it's a tough line between what is uh, freedom of expression and freedom of the press. Here we have like artists protected in the United States by freedom of the press, which
Yeah.
this current administration, God knows what that's going to go with there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what role do you think a photographer should have in contemporary society? Even though it does street, it does documentary, it does portrait. But what do you think is the role that photographers with their own cameras depicting reality or showcasing facets of reality have? What kind of role do they have in society?
I I think photographers are artists,
Yeah.
and they have that they're it's a art form as well as a communication form or documentary form, and that
Okay.
they're people of the world,
Okay.
and their best they should hope that they contribute something positive to the society.
That's exactly what I thought
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would like to go on a little bit on nerdy stuff. So, equipment, settings. So, the tools of the trade, basically. And I wanted to ask, which tools do you bring with you for street photography? Are you more of a minimalist or do you like to be well equipped?
my phone is there if I need it, and I'll shoot on RAW if I have
Yeah.
to. And
Yeah.
if I'm intentionally walking out, I'll just get my camera
Mhm. Yeah. We would like to see the same. The
because
camera.
I'm back. As I said, the best camera is the one you have on you. Because now for street photography, if I'm going out with the intention of doing street photography, only because I'm back to using my film and developing, I'm using my 2.25 single lens reflex.
Wow. Oh,
So it's a
that
little
would be
heavy.
good camera.
So
Yeah,
heavy.
it's
So
pretty heavy.
heavy. Yeah, but that so that's I'm not strict about it. If you whatever you I find I'm more purposeful if I'm looking through a viewfinder rather than my phone, but it's
Yeah.
there. And I've had many digital cameras. I'm just not choosing to do it now. Right?
Hmm.
But if
Yeah.
anyone wants to give me a high quality digital Leica or a
Yeah.
digital medium format camera, well,
Right here.
send it my
Yeah.
way. Send it, and I'll
Yeah.
use it.
Let's put it on the wish list. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Okay, but
yeah.
okay, but nerd typically I prefer. I do not prefer autofocus. I like to have a split
Mm,
image. I like to know if something's in focus.
okay. Interesting. And this leads us to the question I was about to ask. So, Meryl, you have your third eye open, basically. And I wanted to ask, what are your most used settings for street photography, for clubs, for crowds?
Well, again, so I'm going back to the film camera.
Yeah.
I use Tri-X 400. I have a little cheat sheet for estimating the sun and the shade. I use on my phone. I have a light meter app. I use that with a phone camera, automatic raw. And when I was walking around with my digital SLR,
Mhm.
I found it harder to use the meter reading setting. So I was setting it on. I get aperture priority. I like things
Okay.
that I believe like between 8.5 and 11 or something. And I look for it. I like sun. So in
Yeah.
general, I have enough app stuff. And and for being on the streets, I mean, when I had a digital camera I was using, I like just to fill in a flash. That's fine.
Hmm.
And I like
Okay.
carry the camera
Cool.
and the flash. You have to be like, that's all you're doing. That day. It's heavy.
What? Okay. One more little thing. How do you overcome technical difficulties? Hmm.
I've had a lot of technical difficulties.
How do you manage them?
Like
How
I'll
do you
say,
manage?
how do I manage technical difficulties? Is I go to my camera store and I'll say, this is no longer thinking here, and I come up with alternatives, something. I learn to slow down so I break things easily. I am not, I keep it very simple.
Mm.
The same ASA settings or ISO in film. So I'm not jumping all around. I try to keep consistent. So the most important thing I'm doing is looking.
Hmm. I wanted to ask one last question about this nerdy
Sure.
stuff, and then we'll go into something a little
Yeah.
bit more fun. I wanted to ask you, how do you keep your vision fresh after so many years of shooting
My secret is that
or being that good?
we take a lot of crappy pictures, but when you get a gem, look for it and acknowledge it. And
That's fair.
learn how to editing. And then you take I take a lot of like boring, uninteresting, nobody would want it except for me. Cut the situation, switch it up. Yeah,
I mean, those are
do something
two.
else. You can stop for a while. You can switch it up.
Yeah,
You can stop, take breaks.
fair.
You can, it's not a dogma. You can do something different.
Fair. Okay. So
Yeah.
Marco has selected a few pictures from the book that we wanted to together discuss with you.
And if you
Oh,
can
thank you.
share a little anecdotes, or if there's something particular about these photos that you would like to tell us, that would be amazing, because some of this were also in the Street Eyes exhibition we did together. So we want to start off with this one. Yes.
Yes, the Giant Gun. This
Yes.
is almost this time of year. It's
Oh.
1978. For 2 years, I had a grant from a grant to be a photographer for the American Jewish Congress, photographing Jewish New York. And it's Purim, Purim, which is like Carnival, a festival that it's in the Jewish calendar. It's in 2 days from today. And I was in this section of Brooklyn called Williamsburg, where a lot of ultra Orthodox Hasidim, wear black hats, the payas curls, and they celebrate Purim big time. It's like going to Mardi Gras. And I get on, it's wild.
Yeah.
And I got on the subway, and there's this guy dressed like this, impeccably. And that's what I love about why I love New York City. I can be in a totally Hasidic enclave on the subway right there, and there's this guy and just dressed like that,
Wow.
looking like that. And what surprises me about this photograph, it's been out there a lot. I had never heard from anyone say, "I remember that dude," or "That's my great uncle," or "This one," or "Yeah, I've seen him." Never heard a thing about what happened to him. And look how
No.
fabulous he is.
It looks fresh. It looks
Oh,
really, really good.
he is fresh.
The next one would be this one, of course.
Yeah. And this is what I discovered recently, the third book. I remember, I think the theme of this, there was a Judy Jupiter's legs. She wants her names in there. And it's a party, I think, at a club called Les Mousses. And I think the theme was the prom. I don't know why, but I have written down. And these two women also were down and at it. And when it was released online, someone I know online said, "I know one of those women." Yeah, it's like, okay.
Love it. Next one
Yeah.
would be the cover of the book.
Okay, this is Bethany Beauty Salon in Massachusetts. What? It was 1976. That's my mom sitting in the chair getting her hair teased, and she's talking with a beautician. And I asked permission. I asked, "Can I take pictures?"
Yeah.
And they said yes.
Go ahead.
And the sin, when you say regrets, this salon was active until like 2 years ago, and I finally said, "Okay, I'm gonna go back in." I went back in, and my sister, my in-laws lived in here. I said, "Okay, we're going to go on, let's go. I want to go in there." And the salon had closed. So those are regrets. So they go back in
Cool.
to that.
Cool.
I just
Cool.
knew it's interesting. It's just about
is.
Americana. I said, so I said, photography is my superpower.
Yeah. Love it. I have another one, last one, that I would really love you to explain to us, the one of the clowns, because I love the other version you did.
I love the clowns. Okay, I personally love the circus. As a kid, that's what I guess I meet my aunt and cousins in the Bronx, and we meet them and have them go to Ringling Brothers, Barnum Bailey Circus. I love the circus. It's like a free show. Love the circus. And I met these two filmmakers. I think they met them in Studio 54, and they're pretty well known. Named Arce and Ichazo, Cuban Americans. And they asked me, this only with a big camera, they asked me if I'd like to do an assignment with them, potential to be published in a Spanish magazine. And you thought it was to go to the circus behind the scenes. Like, oh, I jumped at it. Yes. Never got published. I love that. And this particular circus, Springly Brothers Circus, they closed down around before the pandemic. And I got commissioned. I got like a press pass through Vice magazine to go because I wanted to photograph the last circus. I see circus, burlesque, drag, nightlife, Broadway theater. It's all the same continuum. It's performance.
Okay, Meryl, thank you so much for your time. So thank you for your time.
It was a blast.
It was a blast despite all the technical inconveniences. Oh my God.
Thank you, Meryl.
Okay, Meryl. So
Okay,
I think she said enough of us.
that's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
No, no. Lunch.
We're too much, right? Thank you, Meryl.